Hello, good morning, afternoon, or good evening. Thanks for dropping by and welcome to my channel where I talk about eye-catching art and eye-catching things. In this video, we have a time-lapse of an impressionistic self-portrait I've recently done. Sorry you're stuck with my face again, but I'm the most affordable and readily available model I know. Okay, it's not a step-by-step video or anything, but I just wanted to crudely talk about some guiding principles and concepts to my painting process. By the way, I'm just working with the limited Zorn palette here with yellow ochre, cadmium red light, titanium white, and ivory black. I've gone with this limited palette so I can practice some color mixing and simplify having to control my values. Color tint, color tone, shades, and color temperature. It's definitely limiting and there are colors I simply won't be able to mix like rich blues and greens, but ultimately it simplifies my shifts in light and color by only working with a few pigments. For the medium, I'm using Liquid Original by Winsor & Newton. Okay, to help explain what's going on here, I start with the P's and Vicks. I look at 4 P's, namely patches, placement, proportion, and planes to start off the fundamental structure and building blocks of the painting. Now the Vicks stand for values, edges, color, and shape, and they reinforce my P's and refine the painting at a later stage. There are many guidelines and techniques artists use in portraiture, and this is just one way of doing things, but these are what I find most helpful in guiding my powers of observation. An important thing to note is that these guidelines are geared towards a full frontal portrait, meaning that they are applicable for faces that aren't angled off to either side or tilted looking up or looking down. Alright, in the beginning I look at patches, which are areas marked out from the rest by a particular characteristic, placement, where a certain part is located within the frame, and proportions, the size or how much space a certain part takes up within the frame. These establish the general framework of the portrait. First, I break down the image into patches, which helps to identify the visual building blocks of the image. Then I drew the outline of the skull and the jawline together, which gives me the basic contour of the head while checking its placement within the frame. For naturalistic portraits, it's really important to work on our proportions because our brains are quick to recognize when something's off, especially since we are always seeing faces. It's almost automatic. Okay, so using a central line to mark the entire length of the head from the top of the skull to the bottom of the chin, I can gauge that the eyebrows are placed just about in the middle of that line. Using the top half of this length, we can indicate that the hairline is close to the middle at the quarter mark. Now, using the lower half of the central line, we can see that the tip of the nose is also right around the middle on another quarter mark. So far, we've divided the entire central line with quarter marks. Now, using the bottom quarter length, we can see that the opening of the mouth is situated right in the middle, or on an 1/8 mark of the entire central line. Based on the eyebrows, I established the vertical placement of the eyes just underneath. Next up, the entire width of the face is marked with 5 points spaced equally apart across, which gives me the horizontal placement for the eyes using the 2nd and 4th points. Now I can gauge the eyes' proportions based on those 2 points more easily. Fun fact and a helpful tip for proportioning the eyes, the space between the eyes is usually equal to the size of one eye. Admittedly, this is where a lot of us face difficulties, and most of the time it's because they look wonky. Here's a couple of tips to help with leveling them off. Look at the tear ducts and corners of the eyes. Notice that the corners are higher than the tear ducts. Using a guideline, we simply connect tear duct to tear duct and corner to corner and check that they are leveled off. We also use this method to compare the top and bottom of one eye to the other eye to check that they're all leveled up. Simple, right? The nose is actually based on the space between the eyes, and as we take the tear ducts and extend a couple of guidelines downward to the level of the quarter mark created earlier, we can establish the length and width of the nose. In the middle, from the tip of the nose to the bottom of the chin marks the opening of the mouth, and using the width of the nose, we can gauge how wide the mouth is. Generally speaking, we can see how the parts of the face are relative to one another in checking for proper placement and proportions. Once the general patches and parts of the face have been established, I start to look at facial planes, which help me to start thinking in 3D for creating a sense of dimension, depth, and perspective in the painting. This is especially helpful in rendering how light hits, bends, and fades to create shadows on subjects. From here, I can heed more attention to the Vicks. With the help of the planes, I determine and adjust the differences in values between the highlights, midtones, shadows, and extreme darks. I prioritize getting my values right beforehand because it helps with the structure of the subject, and values also dictate how light, dark, saturated, or dull colors would be. When the entire surface is covered and it's time to refine the painting, I can focus on considerations regarding the edges and various color blends of the patches or planes. For edges, consider how the patches or planes are interacting with one another. Will they have clear-cut, hard breaks with high contrast, or more soft and gradual blends from one patch to the next? We can see that depending on a hard or soft treatment of edges, we can either create rough and broken textures and separated colors, or smooth textures with more blended colors. Also, the shapes of the patches or planes can either be more pronounced with hard edges or broken down with soft edges. Now, these steps and concepts don't ever fall neatly in this orderly succession during the process, as I generally find myself going back and forth between them. But one thing is for certain, they provide a loose system that are a very practical set of guiding principles to structure the entire process. I blabbered for much too long, but I hope it made sense and that you found it helpful and interesting. Now, I think I'll just let the music play while I take this painting to the finish line.